they quote Matthew 28:18. Then Jesus came and spoke to them, saying, all authority has been given to me in heaven and on earth. So they use this to try to prove that Christ can't be God, because if he's God, he'd already possess all authority, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the objection goes. Yet here, God is giving him all authority, showing that God is greater than him. And therefore, Jesus can't be God, because you can't really give God anything. God possesses everything, correct?
Mm-hmm.
All right, now, let me first explain why Jesus said this. Now, the goal of turning the tables is not just simply turn the tables. Answer the objection from the context of Scriptures, and then turn the tables. Because if I simply turn the tables, then I'll be just simply the two-Koki fallacy, right? That's all it'll be. I mean, so I'm not trying to commit the two-Koki fallacy. What I'm trying to do is kill two birds, one stone. Answer the objection, and then turn the objection against the questioner to demonstrate that if he's consistent, then he's going to have to apply that same argument against his position or her position, and therefore cease being whatever he is, a Muslim or Jehovah's Witness.
Mm-hmm.
Number one, the reason why our Lord is given all authority is because not only Matthew, but Mark, Luke, John, Paul, the entire corpus of the New Testament teach that when Christ became man on earth, when he became a flesh and blood human being on earth, he took the status and position of a slave, meaning he set aside his sovereignty for a season. Now, I'm going to quote Matthew to prove this, because if I go to Paul, someone like Shabrali will say, oh, see, you went to Paul. Well, Paul's theology doesn't agree with Matthew's theology. Prove your case for Matthew. So notice what I've been doing for the most part, Jonathan and Rudolph. Every time an objection is raised, I actually look to that author or that particular book to make my case. Have you noticed the pattern here? That if they quote John, I stick to John, right?
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
And if they quote Matthew, I use Matthew. The reason I do that is because I want to short-circuit the objection. Muslims like Shabir will say, oh, see, you have to go to Paul to tell me what John meant. But Paul and John are not necessarily in agreement. In order to shortchange that argument, I use that author and or that specific book that the author wrote to make my case. Now let me show you that Matthew teaches this. That Matthew himself teaches that the reason why Jesus is given all authority is because he came to the earth as a servant, slave of the Father. Now, let's go to Matthew 20:28 and see what he says. Matthew 20:28. Even as the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve and to give his life as a ransom for many. So here, Matthew already has told us, in fact, Christ has already told us in Matthew, that when he came to the earth, he came to serve. He came to be a servant. That's Matthew 20:28. Also found in Mark 10:45. Luke says something similar. Luke says something similar in Luke 22:27. Mark 10:45, Luke 22:27. They all make the same point. Now, Mark actually quotes this same saying in Mark 10:45. So he came to serve. Now watch this. In Matthew 12:15-21, Matthew 12:15-21, Matthew tells us that Jesus came to fulfill the prophecy of Isaiah 42. Specifically Isaiah 42, verses 1-4. Now I'm going to skip verses 15 and 16. It's Matthew 12:15-21, but I'm going to skip to verse 17. To fulfill what was spoken by Isaiah the prophet saying, here is my servant whom I have chosen, my beloved, in whom my soul is well pleased. I will put my spirit upon him, and he will render judgment to the Gentiles. He shall not struggle, nor cry out, nor will anyone hear his voice in the street. Bruised reed he will not break, and a smoldering wick he will not quench, until he renders judgment unto victory, and in his name will the Gentiles trust. So it's clear from Matthew, Jesus became the Father's servant. Here's my servant. So it only makes sense that if Jesus came to the earth to be a servant, that later on, after perfectly accomplishing the will of the Father, he would be given sovereignty again. So all you find in Matthew 28:18 is an affirmation that Christ, who came to be a servant, was given a sovereignty that is his due, his right, because of who he is, the divine Son of God. Is that clear?
Mm-hmm.
So that's how you answer that objection. The Son humbled himself to be a servant, and therefore the Father responds by exalting his Son to the status and position that belongs to him by divine right. Now there is an added element. When Christ is given that sovereignty again, he no longer exercises it merely as the Son of God. He also exercises it as a human being, as the Son of David, and the head of restored humanity. So that element is what's new. when he came down to earth, he wasn't a man in heaven. He came down as the divine Son of God. He became man. And now when he enters heaven, he returns as the God-man. So now he exercises that divine sovereignty, not simply by virtue of being God, but also the God-man. So he exercises it as God and man. And the reason why he exercises it as man is because he represents us and is restoring us to the dominion that we had but we lost. See, that's the message of the gospel.
Mm-hmm.
Is that clear, or am I confusing people?
That's great. Anyone else?
Clear to everyone? Do you want to make sure? Because if I'm going too fast, I'll repeat the point. If everyone's on page with me, now I want to turn the argument. Everyone on page?
No one's saying otherwise, so go ahead.
Good. No, it's good.
Now,
Good.
how do we turn the tables against them? Now, I don't even need to read 19 to 20 to show them that they're misapplying the text, and it turns against them. But let me look at 19 to 20. They quoted Matthew 28:18, but now let's look at 19 to 20. Go therefore and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name, singular, the name of the Father. Oh, there goes the Father again. And of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Two things. Again, Jesus affirms that God is the Father, and secondly, that He's the Son. Again, if this passage is being quoted by the Muslim, then the Muslim has to then accept the ramifications of quoting this passage and conclude that Muhammad cannot be a true prophet. Why? Because Jesus again says God is the Father and that He's the Son, and that along with the Holy Spirit, He bears the same name. Everything which the Quran denies. Muhammad said Allah is not the Father, Jesus is not the Son, and definitely neither the Son nor the Spirit bear the same name of the Father. Because catch it. In the name singular of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. So all three persons possess and bear the same name, the same authority, the same essence. Now, to easily prove to the Muslim that this passage is incompatible with Islamic theology, challenge the Muslim. And Rudolph, next time when you meet an apologist, whether Yusuf Ismail or someone else, Banir, whatever his name is, what's his name, Banir Bashia?
Yeah, that's right.
Is that his name?
Bashia.
Okay. You say, can you, in front of the audience, say, in the name of Allah, and Muhammad and Gabriel? I challenge you in front of this audience to say, in the name of Allah and Muhammad and Gabriel, or in the name of Allah and His Messenger and Gabriel. He can't do it. He will not do it because he'll be committing shirk.
No,
But challenge him to do it. Say, do it. He won't. So then how can Jesus, if he's a Muslim prophet, say, baptize them? Because baptism is an act signifying your devotion and surrender. Here you're being initiated into the Christian faith, and that initiation is your public testimony, where you bear witness that now you're going to come under the authority, the headship, the influence of not just the Father, but of the Son and the Spirit. So this act of baptism is an act representing your submission to an absolute allegiance to the Father and the Son and the Spirit equally. In the name of the Father and of the Son and the Holy Spirit. So right there that shows that Islam cannot be true. But then 20 says, teaching them to observe all things I have commanded you. And remember, I am with you always, even to the end of the age. Hold on. Jesus is guaranteeing that He'll be personally present, not physically. Physically He's not present with us, but personally He is, by virtue of His deity. He'll be personally present with all believers simultaneously to the end of the age. Now in the context, He's reassuring them, look, go out and make disciples of all nations and don't be afraid, because I'm going to be with you to guarantee the success of your mission. What kind of attributes must Christ have in order to be personally present with all believers simultaneously and to guarantee that they'll be successful in carrying out the Great Commission? What kind of attributes? Help me out, guys. What kind of attributes? He says, I'm with you all. You got it. Omnipresent, omnipotent, omniscient. Because He has to know where they're at, and He has to have the power to make sure that wherever they're at, no harm will come to them until they accomplish His will. So again, He's claiming absolute deity. So hold on. You mean this very verse that the Muslim quoted affirms that Jesus is the absolute sovereign of the entire creation, the divine Son, who bears the same name that the Father and the Spirit possess, and also the one who's personally present with all believers simultaneously in order to preserve them and empower them to successfully carry out His mission? And this passage the Muslim wants to use to try to deny the Trinity and deity of Christ? Again, are you serious? You really want to use this passage again? But now how does it affect the Quran, apart from the fact that Jesus is the Son, God is the Father, and he claims deity, all of which the Quran denies. Let's look at verse 18 again. All authority has been given to me in heaven and earth. So Christ says, all sovereignty has been given to me over all creation, not just some part of creation. The entire creation is subject to me. I am sovereign over all creation. Now you have a problem. Do me a favor, Jonathan, read chapter 25, verse 2 of the Quran. Chapter 25, verse 2.
Okay. A sec.
Chapter 25, verse 2.
Yeah, we're just pulling it up. Here we go. 25, verse 2. The one to whom belongs the kingdom of the heavens and the earth, and who did neither have a son, nor is there any partner to him in the kingdom, and who has created everything and designed it in a perfect measure.
Okay, I'm really confused, Jonathan. I thought Jesus was a Muslim. But here in the Quran it says that the dominion of the heavens and the earth belongs to Allah alone. He doesn't have a son, nor will he allow anyone to share in his dominion, right?
Mm-hmm.
You just read Matthew 28 where Jesus says he is the divine Son and does share in the dominion of his Father over the heavens and the earth. How can Jesus be a Muslim when he contradicts chapter 25, verse 2 of the Quran? Did you see that, Rudolph?
I got it. That's excellent. I'm writing it.
So you understand the problem here? If the Quran is true, then Jesus cannot say what he says. But Jesus does say the things that we find in Matthew, things that the Quran says he could not say if he's a Muslim who preached Tawheed. Therefore, Muhammad cannot be a true prophet, and the Quran is wrong. So Muslims, stop quoting my Bible to prove Jesus isn't God and that he's a Muslim. It's a nightmare for you. Stop doing it. Now, remember the argument. If Jesus is given authority, he can't be God, because if he's God, he already possesses that authority, right? Remember that objection?
Yep.
That was the objection. Now, we already answered that. But now I'm going to show you that the Quran says that Allah himself receives inheritance from his creatures. So if the logic of the argument is true, Jesus can't be God because he's given authority, then Allah can't be God because he's given an inheritance. Go to chapter 15, verse 23 of the Quran. Chapter 15, verse 23.
It is indeed we and only we who give life and bring death, and we are the ultimate inheritor of everything.
Wait. Allah inherits everything? I'm baffled, Rudolph and Jonathan. I thought to be God means you possess everything already, and you can't receive anything from anyone. But here it says Allah is the ultimate inheritor of all things, so he's going to receive an inheritance. I'm confused. So how can Allah be God according to the Muslim logic? Remember, this is the Muslim logic. It's not my logic. They're the ones saying that Jesus can't be God because he receives something from another. Well, Allah can't be God because he receives an inheritance from his creation.
Sure.
Right? Consistency, right, friends? Remember what our brother James White says? Inconsistency is a sign of a failed argument. So now argue consistently. If Jesus can't be God because he receives the kingdom, Allah can't be God because he receives an inheritance from his creation. Go to chapter 19, verse 40 of the Quran.
Say again, which
Chapter
one?
19, verse 40 of the Quran.
Chapter 19.
Chapter 19, verse 40.
Verse 40, okay.
As you can see, Rudolph, I'm having fun today, aren't I?
So it says, surely we shall be the ultimate owner of the earth and all those on it, and to us they will be returned.
Well, actually, it's we and only we shall be the inheritors.
Mm-hmm.
Is that what your translation says?
It says ultimate owner on mine.
Okay, well, even if we go that, actually the word is waris. One of the names of Allah is al-waris. One of his names, al-waris, means the inheritor. That's one of his names. Ask the Muslim. Ask Yusuf. Ask Bani Bashia. I have a hard time pronouncing it. Say, is one of the names of Allah al-waris? W-A-R-I-T-H. They'll say yes. Al-waris means the inheritor. How can Allah call himself the inheritor? And even if he say we're the ultimate owners. So right now he's not the ultimate owner and only will be in the future? But that's not the translation. The actual translation is we will be the inheritor. Now go to 19 verse 80. 19 verse 80.
19 verse 80 says, and we will inherit from him what he is talking about, and he will come to us all alone.
He's going to inherit from a creature? Allah's going to inherit from a creature. Jonathan, are you serious?
Ouch.
And now finally, the final one, 2189. This one is a nightmare too. This one is the granddaddy. Zechariah, the father of John the Baptist, supposedly says this. Now again, we don't believe any of these words go back to the true God or the prophets of God, but for argument's sake, we're using it for the Muslims who do accept it. 2189.
2189 says, here we go. And remember Zechariah when he called his Lord, "My Lord, do not leave me alone, and you are the best of inheritors."
Wait. So Allah is among a group that inherit, yet He's the best of those who inherit. So He's one of many.
Mm-hmm.
Did you catch that, Rudolph and Jonathan?
Yep.
Yep.
You, Allah, are the best of those who inherit. So wait, you mean Allah is one of many? He's a part of a group that inherits, and among them, He's the best of them? So that Allah is not unique anymore? He's one of many? He just so happens to be better than the rest, but He's still like them? But I thought Allah can't be likened to anything.
Rudolph, what does your study Quran say on that verse?
I've actually just looked down. Let me just go back to the previous one that was mentioned. What was the previous one you mentioned? Actually, there was 18.
It was 1940 and 1980. The previous one was 1980, then 1940.
1940. Yeah, I actually looked, and it actually gives the exact name of Allah.
Al-Warith. Says it, right?
Yeah, it does. One of the Quranic names of God is the inheritor, Al-Warith. C1523.
Wow, so it even tells you. The inheritor. Please, yeah, go ahead.
Yep.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
In actual fact, it says, and also 2189, where he's described as the best of inheritors, God is the inheritor, and insofar as all things belong to Him and thus return unto Him in the end. C57.5.
Well, wait, so when Jesus inherits creation because it belongs to Him, that's proof He's not God. But when Allah does it, it proves He's God. Okay, makes sense.